you. I'm not up here to sing, and I hate to follow all these great speakers. Saran Stacy, is Saran still in here? I told him if I ever had to speak after him again, I was going to do something to him, but I'm glad he's gone. Nigel Farage, thank you for coming. Steve Bannon, thank you for coming. That is really an outstanding man. I can tell you he is an outstanding man. He gave me more encouragement than anybody this whole time, and I talked to him once on the telephone and once in person. But he's a wonderful person. Phil Robertson? Wow. You know, I heard something about Phil Robertson, and I think he's gone, so I can tell it. He's not here now. You know, there were some guys come down. A lawyer came down from up north, New York, big guy, and he was going to do some duck hunting. And so he got near Mr. Robertson's properties and he shot a duck, and it fell over in a field. And so he said to himself, I guess I'd go over the field and over the fence and get my duck. But he didn't know it was Mr. Robertson's property. And so he started over and he picked up his duck, and here comes Phil Robertson out with a shotgun. And he said, what are you doing? He said, the lawyer said, well, I'm getting my duck. Phil Robertson says, that ain't your duck. That's my duck. That's my field. And he didn't know who Phil Robertson was, of course. And he said, hey, look, man. He says, I am a rich New York lawyer. I've got a big firm. I could sue you. I could take your farm, your gun, and everything you got. Of course, he didn't know Phil Robertson. He probably had more than the lawyer did. But Phil Robertson just said, well, you ain't in New York. You're down here. And we don't do things that way. And the lawyer said, what do you mean you don't do things that way? He said, well, we don't go to court down here. We got a 3-kick rule. And the lawyer says, what do you mean a 3-kick rule? Never heard of that. And Phil said, well, it's easy. I get 3 kicks, you get 3 kicks, I get 3 kicks, and the first one who quits loses. And the lawyer was a big, strong guy, and he looked at Phil and he says, I think I can take this guy. But he didn't know Phil Robertson. So Phil Robertson said, okay, I go first. So Phil hauled off and kicked him right you know where. And he bent over in pain. And he come up, and Phil Robertson, more agile than he looks, he came up with a snap kick to his chin and knocked him on his back. And the lawyer's thinking he was about dead till Phil walked over and kicked him in the side. And he thought he was going to die, but the guy started feeling good. And so he got a smile on his face because it was his turn. He got up and he said, okay, farmer, it's my turn. Phil Robertson said, oh no, I quit. You can get your duck. Well, we're in Alabama. And in Alabama, for the rest of the world to hear, we dare defend our rights. We don't stop kicking. This is a very important time. I think there was a guy here I wanted to see. There he is, right over here in this corner. Y'all see this guy with the ribbons on? If you can't see, you got to see this man. I want you. I don't want to move him around a bunch. He's over 90, but I want to kick him because I tell you, he's been through it. You know, he said the Pledge of Allegiance, and didn't he do a good job? And if you notice, he was standing, 93 years old. And you know why he's standing? Because this man has fought for his country before you were born. Yeah, let me ask this. Is there anybody here that was in the Army in 1941? Anybody? He was. From South Alabama, he went into the army and was shipped over to the Philippines before the Japanese came. And in 1942, the Japanese came. And after he killed about thousands, they got him. And they marched him across the Philippines, the Bataan Death March. Have you ever heard of it? Yes. You know how many people are living? Not very many. He was in the Bataan Death March. They marched him back. They took him to Japan. He stayed in a concentration camp for the rest of the war. He risked his life many times. Once they nearly cut his head off for putting his hands in his pocket. This man is a hero. This man knows. Give him a hand. But I want to tell you what's special about this man. He's 93 years old, and he stood for the Pledge of Allegiance. He stood when the national anthem, and he saluted and put his hand over his heart. He stood. We're missing that today in our country. We're missing that today. And they talk about the law. You know, the law requires you, says you should stand and put your hand over your heart. That's in the 36 USC 301, last amended in 2008. That's the law, United States Code. When are we going to get back to the law? We shouldn't need the law when we've done what he's done. We are living fat and happy. But hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel. Back in the days of Israel, it could be said of America. Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of America, for the Lord hath the controversy with the inhabitants of this land, because there's no truth nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing, they break forth, and blood toucheth blood. Therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that liveth therein shall languish. We've forgotten God. We've forgotten the gracious hand which preserved us in peace and multiplied, enriched, and strengthened us, and vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our own hearts that all of these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom and virtue of our own. Intoxicated with unbroken success, we've become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God who made us. We've got to go back to God. We've got to go back to a moral base. You know, it's a great honor for me, and you put yourself in my shoes. I'm just a country boy from North Alabama. And to have people like Steve Bannon, Nigel Farage, Saran Stacy, and Phil Robertson, and others who have talked to you, to have them come long distances. And I'm not forgetting Senator Tripp Pittman. Give him a hand. He's been very... But it's an honor for me. But I'm going to tell you, I would gladly have declined an honor to which I find myself unequal. I have not the calmness and impartiality which the infinite importance of this occasion demands. I will not deny the charge of my enemies that resentment for the accumulated injuries of our country and an ardor for a glory rising to enthusiasm may deprive me of that accuracy of judgment and expression which men of cooler passions might possess. So let me beseech you then to hear me with caution, to examine without prejudice and to correct the mistakes into which I may be hurried by my zeal. That was Samuel Adams on August 1st, 1776. When he's explaining to the people of the country why they even did the Declaration. Why they did it. And we've forgotten. We've forgotten it's all about God. We have explored the temple of royalty, he said, and found that the idol that we bow down to has eyes that see not, ears that hear not our prayers, and a heart like the nether millstone. But we have this day restored the sovereign. To whom alone all men ought to be obedient. He reigns in heaven, and with a perpetuous eye beholds his subjects, assuming that freedom of thought and dignity of self-direction which he bestowed upon them. From the rising to the setting sun, may his kingdom come. We need to go back and learn our history. You know, today there's a big dispute about taking down monuments, about forgetting our history. We can't forget our history. If we forget our history, we will repeat it. America is great because America has overcome many, many problems. And when we take an oath to that flag, Pledge of Allegiance, or when we stand up and sing the national anthem, we should be proud that we live in the greatest country of the world. We should appreciate people like Colonel Frazier. You don't have to tell him to stand at 93. He stands. Stand, therefore, as it says in Ephesians. He takes a stand for his country, and he still loves his country. I should keep back my opinions. Guilty of treason toward my country, and an act of disloyalty toward the majesty of heaven, which I revere above all earthly kings. You know, I'm running for the United States Senate. Tomorrow is a very, very important time. This election is critical to this nation. For whatever reason, God has put me in this election at this time, and all the nation is watching. All Washington is watching to see what the people of Alabama do tomorrow. Do we defend our rights and those of our children and grandchildren? Will we take a stand against a Washington establishment who's trying to come down here and buy this election with $30 million? Yes. Will we send them a message? Yes. Very clear. Yes. Alabama can't be bought. Alabama will take a stand. And I'm going to tell you, when you do, everybody will see it. Everybody will be encouraged to take them on and stop the people that are trying to keep their jobs up there and do nothing. In November 2016, when Donald Trump was elected, everybody was filled with hope. Hope that we were going to have something happen in Washington. And what have we had? Riots, demonstrations, protests. Nothing has happened. We've had bills, hundreds of bills, 500 in 2016, a low 200, I'm understanding, in 2017. And how many have gone through the Senate? Because the Senate won't move. They don't want to move. If they did, how hard is it to repeal Obamacare? It takes a vote, yes or no. Quite frankly, Obama didn't care. And neither does your government when it tries to take over an industry that should be left to the free enterprise system upon which this nation was founded. The biggest obstacle of free enterprise is the United States government, which imposes regulations, taxes. Now listen, I know a little bit about the issues in this case, and I could talk to you all night about the issues. I could talk to you about DACA, Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. What was that? What law was that? Why was it unlawful? You see, the DREAM Act didn't pass. Development, Relief, Education of Alien Minors. It didn't pass in Congress. So Janet Napolitano, director of the Homeland Security Department, decides to issue a memo. A memo. And she issues a memo that we're not going to take action. That is her job. That was her job. They're supposed to take action on this, but they didn't. Now, you see, who's to blame for this? The president? No, he didn't do it. He let it be done. Congress did not stand up and impeach her for trying to violate the law. It's political. That goes back to checks and balances. And if we'll go back to understanding our Constitution, we wouldn't have the problem. The freemen of America did not wait. To usurp power had strengthened itself by exercising and entangled the question in precedents. They saw all the consequences in the principle, and they avoided the consequences by denying the principle. We revere this lesson too much soon to forget it, because it is proper to take alarm at the first experiment on our liberties. That was James Madison. James Madison had it right. They didn't wait. They took action, and that's what we've got to do today. If we don't, we're going to lose this nation. We've got to start recognizing that the Constitution was there to guide our government, that there is a meaning behind the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor permitted by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively to the people. I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that's the lamp of experience. And judging from my experience, what has happened in the federal government in the last 10 years to justify those hopes which so many have been satisfied to solace themselves. We've got to take action. It's time to take action. An appeal to God and our Constitution is all that has left us. They tell us we're weak. They tell us we're weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. So, on September 26th, you have an opportunity to send them a message in Washington, D.C. Tell them that millions upon millions of dollars can't change the people of Alabama. You have an opportunity to lead the rest of the country. I talked to someone yesterday who's waiting to see what happens here to decide if he will run for the Senate. They're waiting to see, because if they can't beat me with $30 million and we've only had about 1.5, if they can't beat me, then there's a crack in the dam. And then the whole thing falls. Mitch McConnell needs to be replaced. And your vote tomorrow may determine that. So get your friends and get your neighbors and get them out. This is a very important election, not just for me. Men come and go. But when God gives you the opportunity to make a difference, you should seize upon it. And this is Alabama, and there is no better place than Alabama to do that. No, I did. It's been very hard for my wife and myself to wither nearly 3 months of negative ads that we couldn't answer with money because we didn't have it. Ads that were completely false. That I don't believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in the Second Amendment. You know, they say guns are bad, that they kill. Well, I know a lot about guns. I'm the one that has used guns in combat. I know what guns do. I know what guns do. Colonel Frazier knows what guns do. But Colonel Frazier's not going to shoot anybody because he's got a heart of gold. Guns don't kill, people kill. Cars kill. Are we going to get rid of our cars? Are we going to get rid of our knives? No, we've got to bring morality back to our country. We've got to uphold the Second Amendment. You know, it's very hard because I have written briefs in Heller versus Washington, D.C., and McDonald versus Chicago, which were two cases that went before the United States Supreme Court about the right to keep and bear arms. And it hurts to see I'm soft on guns. Soft? I don't even know what that means. I've upheld the Second Amendment. I will fight for you, just like I fought in Vietnam to uphold the Constitution, just like when I was sworn on the banks of the Hudson River many, many years ago, 1965 to be exact. And since then, I've learned to appreciate what our founding fathers did. And I want to bring the knowledge of that Constitution to Washington, D.C., so they can learn what they can do and what they can't do. If we don't get a handle on our indebtedness or national debt, we're going to wind up like Greece or Argentina. Imagine, ladies, I said this to my wife the other day, if you had a credit card and every time it came due, you could just raise the credit limit. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? But one day you would wake up and realize that you can't even pay the interest unless 1/5 of your entire expenditures is paid to the company. 1/5 of everything you spend a year just to pay the interest. Do you know that's where we are in 24/7? That's where our nation will be. And what happens? Democrat, Republican, they all raise the credit debt ceiling. Now let me tell you why that's wrong. One of the senators, Senator Paul, put an amendment on a recent increase in the debt ceiling. They just wanted $15 billion. So he said, well, why don't we take a little bit out of this foreign aid, $57 billion, that we've got set aside? And the Senate voted it down. They voted it down. And I'm thinking, why would they do that? There's nothing in the United States Constitution about giving foreign aid to foreign countries. We need to wake up as a nation. We need to wake up as a people. And time is getting late. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop, but my heart will keep for this country. We need to stop federal judges who think they're above the law, who think they can make the law as they go. I want to tell you that I thank you very much for supporting me. People ask all the time, how's this happening? And I tell them, it's not because of my campaign. It's not because of the people around me. They're great people. But God is in this. Does that mean I will win? No. I don't know what God means of anything, but I do know his hand is upon us. And whether we win or lose, we'll continue to fight to bring this nation back to what it once was. Well, thank y'all for coming tonight. May God bless you, state of Alabama, United States of America.